Suppose you have a star schema model containing one fact table and 4 dimension tables, and for some reason you need to add another fact table inside the same model. How would you do this? In this video, we are going to see how we can handle 2 fact tables inside the same data model. Hello and welcome to a new video from Power Pivot tutorial series, video number 9, PP09. In this video, we are going to see how we can handle 2 fact tables inside the same data model. And in the example, we are going to see an actual fact table and a budget fact table, and how we can combine data from these 2 tables inside one report to compare actual versus budget. At end of the previous video, PP08, we managed to create this dynamic sales dashboard to present the sales data for 4 years for AAA bikes. You will see that we have the revenue year on year, year-to-date revenue, and the change year on year for the year-to-date revenue. In this dynamic dashboard, you can select the year, also you can specify a month, and also you can select any region. If you look at the report layout, you will see that we have the revenue presented by category and also by product. However, you can notice that the missing part is the achievement versus budget. So in this video, we are going to continue the same example. We are going to add the budget file and modify this report to show also the change versus budget for 2018. And at end of this video, we'll add also the budget for 2019 and show the difference between the actual and the budget. At the beginning, we are going to see how we can add budget files using Power Query to the same model. And then we are going to see how we can handle multiple fact tables inside the same model. And then we are going to discuss the structure of the model and the granularity of the data, followed by the calculation of actual versus budget measures. And then we are going to modify the report to include the new calculated measures. And finally, we are going to add more budget years. At the beginning, I'm going to remind you by the structure of this data model. We have a model of 5 tables organized in a star schema. In the heart of the star schema, we have the all sales table containing all the sales transaction for 4 years. It includes the product ID, channel ID, region ID, date, quantity, and the discount. Also inside the same table, I created a lot of measures. I started this example few videos back. So I recommend that you start this series from the beginning, and you'll find a link to the entire series at the top of the screen right now. Also, I have 4 dimension tables, one for the product. I use it to reference the product name, the category name, and also the price. I have 2 tables for the channel and region. I can just use them for the name of the channel and the name of the region. And I have a calendar table, which is basically required for all the classification of the dates, including year, month, and quarter, and so on and so forth. In order to bring the budget data inside this model, I'm going to start by just extracting the budget file using Power Query. This is the Excel workbook containing the budget data. You can notice that this workbook contains only one sheet. It's called 2018. And also it contains the information for 2018 budget only. You can notice this through the filter, and there is no dates, meaning that the level of details inside this file is much higher than the level of details that we have in the actuals, because in the actual file we have transaction by transaction and day by day, but this file containing one amount for each and every month. For sure we have different products and different channel and different region, but for every combination, we have only one amount for each month. And this is exactly what is meant by granularity. And we are going to talk about this in details later. But for the moment, we just need to use Power Query in order to extract this file and just load it inside the data model. From the same Excel workbook containing my data model, I'm going to the data ribbon on the left-hand side, get data, from file, and from Excel workbook. Here is my file containing the budget, and then I'm going to click on import. This will trigger the Power Query navigator. On the left hand side, I can see the file, the budget, and also the only sheet inside this file, which is basically 2018. I can just select and preview the data from this window. If I select this sheet and transform, this means that in the future I won't be able to add more sheets. If I add another sheet for 2019, I won't be able to extract it inside my budget. So I'm going to select one level up the file itself and then click on transform. This will trigger the Power Query editor. On the right hand side, I'm going to make the name only budget and enter. On the middle, I have the preview of the data. You can notice that I have all the content of this Excel workbook. I have different kind. If you look at the kind column, you will find sheet and define name. I would only focus on the sheets, so I'm going to do a filter using the kind. So I'm going to uncheck define names and click on OK. Now I have only the list of the sheets. For the moment, it's only one sheet. If you look at the column called data, you will see a table. If you check the data here, you can just select the white empty space, and the preview of the data is right below. You have the preview of your table, year, month, product, channel, region, and revenue. So far, so good. The only thing that I need to do now, just to make sure that I pre-promote the headers. In order to do so, I'm going back to the source step and from the formula bar. And if you check the Excel workbook function, you will see that there is two arguments at the end. One is null and the other one is true. If you just change this null to true and then hit the check mark, back to filtered rows step. And if you go to the column containing the data and check your file, you will see that the header is already automatically promoted. Now I can get rid of all the columns except for the data columns. So I'm going to select, right click and remove other columns. And then I can use the expand button in order to expand this table. Don't forget to uncheck use original column name as prefix and click on OK. And here you go, you have your table extracted here. Couple of things before loading. I need to fix the types, and also I need to find a solution for the date because there is no date in this file. And remember, in our model we have a calendar table and we need a date column in order to use it in the relationship between the calendar table and the budget table. I don't have a date, but I have a year and a month. There is a very easy way that I can use in order to create a date out of these two columns. At the beginning, I'm going to merge these two columns. So I'm going to select in order month and then press Ctrl and select the year and go to transform ribbon, and I'm going to use merge columns. From the merge columns window, I'm going to use comma as a separator and let me call this as date and click OK. And here you go, you have one column for the date. It has the name of the month and also the number of the year. But if you check the data type, it's ABC. I need to change it to date, but if I do so, it will never understand the date. Instead, I'm going to select only this column. Going to the right hand side from date and time column, I'm going to select date and then parse. Once you click on it, this will be converted into dates, and you'll notice that each and every month is represented by the first day of the month, and you can check this from the filter. You will notice that you have 1st of January, 1st of February, 1st of March, and so on and so forth. Now I need just to make sure that I have all data types clean. So I'm going to select the first one and press Shift and then select the last one. And again from transform ribbon, I'm going to select the data type. And here you go, all data types are good. Now I'm ready to load home, close and load to. Only create a connection and add this to data model and click on OK. And here you go, you have the budget file loaded to the data model. Let's check our data model now. Here you go, the budget file is now inside the data model. Now we have the budget table inside our model, and I need to start to create some relations between the budget table and the other tables inside the model in order to integrate it inside the model so I can start to build some reports based on all the tables together. So let's just remind ourselves, why do we have fact table and dimension tables? The main role for the dimension table is to filter the fact table, meaning that when I select a specific year from the calendar table, it will use the relation in order to filter the data coming from the fact table or the sales table. Same for product name or category name, same for region or channel, I use all this information in order to do some filtration with the all sales. So if I want to use also the data coming from the budget table, I need these dimension tables also to filter the information that I have inside the budget table. This will give me an idea about the relation that I need to create. I need to create relations between the budget table or the new fact table with all the dimension table, but I won't be able to create any relation directly between the two fact tables. And that's also because to create a one-to-many relation, I need at least one side of the relations to have a unique list of values, and this is not happen between these two tables. So let's think about the product ID and product ID. If I try to just create a relation, it will give me an error because none of them has unique list of values. So let's try to create these relations together. At the beginning, I'm going to reorganize this model. I will take the all sales or the first fact table on the left, and I will put all the dimension tables on the middle. And now I'm going to start to create the relations. So I'm going to start from the top. The first column is date. Date for sure will be used to create a relation between the budget and the calendar. So I'm going to drag from the date until I reach the column date inside the calendar. Release the mouse button, and here you go, a one-to-many relation. The one side is from the dimension table and the many side on the fact table. And then we're going to use the product ID to create a relation with the product table. So I'm going to take the product ID. I'm going to drag until I reach the product ID inside the product table. Release the mouse. Here you go. Same for the channel ID and same for region ID. And all the many sides from the fact table and all the one sides is coming from the dimension table. And now I have the budget integrated inside this model. If you remember when we created this example, we managed to hide some columns from the client view. For example, if you check the all sales table, you will see that all the columns are dimmed. If you try to use it inside any pivot table, you won't find it. I just left all the measures that you can use, but all the columns you won't be able to use. Why? Because whenever you need to present, let's say, the products or the category, you are going to use it from the dimension table, not from the fact table. I would do the same for the budget table. I'm going to hide everything because anytime I need information from the budget, I need to start by just selecting a column from the dimension tables. The only thing that I need to leave is the measures, but I don't have any measures for the moment in this fact table. So I'm going to hide the entire table from the client tool. I'm going to select the header, right click, and then hide from client tool. Now I won't be able to select any of these columns inside a pivot table when I try to create a report. In the next section, we are going to think about this structure and how can we use it inside a pivot table. I need to put a small report together in order to check the data inside the budget table. So I'm going to create a single measure for the budget table. This measure will just add up the total of the revenue. If you remember a few videos back in this series, we agreed that it's better to have explicit measures rather than having implicit measure. If I try to put the revenue column inside a pivot table, it will automatically create an implicit measure, and this is something that we are not recommending. That's why I would calculate a measure to sum up all the revenues, and then I use this measure inside my report. Remember that in all sales table, we didn't have a revenue column. We had to calculate it in a measure. However, the budget table is a bit different. It has already a revenue measure, but I need just to sum it instead of just putting the column inside the pivot table and have the issue of having implicit measure. In order to do so, I'm going to add this measure inside the all sales as well. There's no difference. You can put your measure anywhere. But for me, it's much easier to have all the measures inside one table. So I'm going to the data view. And inside the all sales, I'm going to add a new label. Let me call this budget measures. And then I'm going to create a new measure. Let me call it total budget, colon and equal, and a very simple function, which is basically sum, and then open a bracket. And let me select from the budget table the column revenue, double click, close the bracket and hit enter. Quick number formatting. I'm going to use English United States for the currency. And then I'm going to use the decimal places. And now I am ready. I can just create a pivot table. From the same window, from the Power Pivot window, I'm going to select the pivot table icon. This will prompt me back to the Excel sheet. I'm going to select a new worksheet and click on OK. I have here the pivot table placeholder, and I have the pivot table list. I'm going to select the measures. First one will be the revenue. I'm going to put it inside the values. In this table, I just need to compare between both actual and budget. So from all sales, I'm going to select the revenue measure. This is just calculating the actual revenue. And the last one that we created together, the total budget and the values as well. And I'm going to the calendar table. From the calendar table, let me select years. Remember that we have only 1 year, so I'm going to select the years and I'm going to put it inside the filter so I can select 2018. And let me go to something like the product, and I'm going to select the category in the rows. Here you go. I have a good pivot table. It's comparing the revenue, the actual, to the budget. You can notice that the revenue, the actual revenue, is much higher than the budget because we are selecting all years. If I select only 2018, now the numbers is looking more reasonable, and you can see that I managed to filter both tables, the actual or the all sales with the budget tables, using the category inside the product table. The issue that we are going to face when we try to break down this by days. Why? Because the granularity of the data. The budget table does not contain any dates. It's starting from the month, and then you can build the quarter and the year, but you will never be able to report by day. This is not the case for the actual or the all sales table. It contains transaction by transaction and day by day. Let's try to add some days. I'm going to take out the category. Let me go back to the calendar. I'm going to select month. No problem at all. Month is working perfectly. But when I try to add days below the month, you will see that I don't have dates for the budget. I have only days for the actual revenue. Instead, inside the budget, each and every month represented by the first day of the month. So this kind of report will never be supported by this model. And there is nothing wrong about the model itself. It's about the data that I have. The grain of the data of the budget is higher than the grain of the data of the actual. No problem. In our final report, we'll not use the days. We are going to report by month. Let's add a couple of measures for our final report. I need to calculate the total budget year to date. So I'm going to add another measure. Let me call it budget YTD, colon and equal. I'm going to use the calculate function exactly like what we did in the previous video, PP08. You'll find the link on top of the screen right now. So I'm going to start by calculate. It requires an expression. The expression will be the measure that we calculated in the previous section. So in order to select a measure inside the formula, I'm going to open a square bracket and I'm going to select the total budget that we already calculated, and then comma. I need a filter for the calculate function. The filter this time will be the function dates YTD. And then this function dates YTD requires dates, and dates will be inside the calendar table. So I'm going to type calendar and I'm going to select the date column from the calendar table, close the bracket for dates YTD and close the bracket for calculate and hit enter. Again, we need to add some number formatting. You can see the blank here, but no problem. Once we drop it inside a pivot table, it's going to work. Now we need to add the variances between the actual and the budget on both levels, the current and the year to date. So I'm going to add a couple of measures. First one will be versus budget, colon and equal, and just I'm going to subtract the actual minus the budget. So I'm going to select two measures. First one will be the revenue. Second one will be total budget, and then hit enter. The final one will be versus budget year to date, colon and equal, just the same. I'm going to subtract the revenue year to date minus budget year to date and hit enter. I need to do number formatting. I can do number formatting for both together. I'm going to select both measures and you can see the green square, and then English United States and reduce decimal places. Now we are ready. We can just amend our report in order to add the budgets inside the dashboard. Let's adjust our dashboard to include the variance to budget. From the pivot table fields, I'm going to the all sales table, and here is my newly added measures. I'm going to add only two measures. I'm going to select the versus budget and I'm going to just place it below the revenue, and versus budget year to date, and I'm going to place it below revenue year to date. Now my report is adjusted. I need to do some formatting. Let me adjust the column width and also the width of these two objects, the two slicers. I'm going to select both, and while pressing Alt, I'm going to just drag. This way it's aligned 100% to the grid. And also I need to reformat the header. And now I am good to go. Let's check the report now. Now I'm selecting 2018. I have budget and actual for 2018. That's fine. I'm selecting only months. There's no days. And I'm selecting only one channel. You can see the revenue. You can see the variance to revenue by product and by category. The year-on-year change. Year-to-date revenue up to July. And also the variance to the budget up to July. And the year-on-year change for the year-to-date. I think it's now more insightful and more useful because we managed to add the variance to budget. I can change the month, all working. I can change the channel, and also I can select the years. Remember that we don't have budget for 2019. That's why you will see that the versus budget is exactly the same like the column revenue. Same for versus budget year to date. It is the same like the revenue year to date column. The next step is to add the 2019 budget, and you'll be surprised. This will take only few seconds. Here is the Excel workbook containing the 2018 budget. I have another Excel workbook containing another file for the 2019 budget. I need to copy this sheet to the original workbook. So I'm going to select the sheet, right click and move or copy. Create a copy and then move to budget file, move to end and click on OK. Now I have the two sheets side by side inside the same Excel workbook. I'm going to save and close. Back to the Excel workbook containing our model and our dashboard. From data ribbon, show queries and connection. Here is my budget. You can notice that it has 8,000 rows, and I'm going to refresh. Now it's loading. Just finished. Now we have 16,000 rows. And let's check our pivot table now. We are selecting 2019. Any month in 2019, you will notice that the variance versus budget is updated and all is working perfectly. It took only few seconds. That was all for today. I hope that video was useful for you. Next video, PP10, we are going to discuss the cube function, how we can retrieve data from the data model without using pivot tables. It's very interesting and very useful. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe and leave me a comment. You will find some useful links here. Please check them out and see you in next video, and bye.